Hello, Internet, and welcome to the Homebrew Studio. My name is Matthew. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm going to be with you for the next hour or so in the studio today as we talk about creating homebrew content that you can use in your role-playing games with your friends. So, thank you very much for joining me today. With me, as always, is Logan, one of our Nerdsmith directors and the arbiter of the live stream. Logan, say hello to the fine people in chat today, and oh my, we have an early crowd by the looks of it. I see 12-sided Guy, thank you for joining us in the studio. I see Jay, thank you for joining us in the studio today. Yes, and 12-sided Guy is apparently writing a book that includes a focus on D&D and food. Well, you have shown up on an apropos day, my friend. Before we get into the studio proper, though, I do want to once again thank everybody who supports Nerdsmith, either through a membership subscription on our website, nerdsmith.org, or through Twitch subs and bits. We are very grateful for those of you who throw a few bucks our way and help us continue to do what we love, which is bring you all of this great, free, nerdy entertainment. As an additional reminder, you can join our Discord by clicking a link that's below the Twitch player, or there should be one that will pop up in chat at some point. Just say that Homebrew Studio sent you, and that will get you access to our public Discord server, so you can hang out with our fantastic, welcoming community. You can join the Homebrew Studio chat channel and talk about the things we create in chat today. Bring up your own ideas, your own homebrew for us to discuss, and be part of the community. We would very much love to have you. So, for our topic today, I had something planned, something very different planned for today. It was going to be building off of a couple recent studio sessions that we've had, but at the 11th hour, I was issued a challenge. For those of you who were not tuned in earlier to Discover RPG, which is another fantastic program that streams on this channel, it streams at noon Pacific time every Wednesday, so it's before us. It is hosted by Angela and Logan. They discuss all manner of RPG-related topics, and today they had a special guest, Chad, another one of our Nerdsmith creators. Chad is the GM for In Vain Walpurgisnacht, which is a 5th edition Vampire the Masquerade game, as well as Chaotic Goodness, which is a space opera RPG. Chad decided to challenge me to create a black licorice golem. And I've decided to pick up that gauntlet and run with it. So that's what we are going to be working on today in the studio, is creating a black licorice golem. And if we have time, I'll maybe take that idea and run a little bit further with it as well. So, let's see. Ooh, 12-sided ago. That sounds really awesome. Yeah, if you hop into our Discord and maybe give us a link to some of the books that you've written, that would be fantastic. It sounds like a very interesting idea. So, but let's get into the studio today. Now, for a Black Licorice Golem, I was looking around through my DMG for a template, something that we can work off of. And ultimately what I decided on was our Frankensteinish friend, the Flesh Golem. Now, I chose this because it's a CR5, it's about mid-range in terms of a monster CR, and it is also organic-based, which I feel works well when we're talking about a food-based golem. Excuse me. So, what I've got here is just a copy straight out of the DMG of all of the Flesh Golem's stats and abilities, and we're going to start tweaking this to make our Black Licorice Golem. So, our Black Licorice Golem, I'm going to change this from medium to large, just because I like the idea of constructs being these big, sort of, lumbering things, as opposed to being human-sized. So it's going to be a large construct, unaligned, armor class. We may come back and change that. I'm not going to bother changing the hit point formula at the moment. And let's start looking at its statistics. Hello, Tessa. Thank you for popping in before your drive home. Do not text and drive. We appreciate you at least listening on your commute. As we talk about our candy construct, so let's look at our stats here. We have a very high strength, a very low dexterity, a high con, a low intelligence, baseline wisdom, and a low charisma. Now, let's think about licorice. Let's think about the forms that licorice takes. We have licorice jelly beans, we have licorice twists, we have licorice ropes, and generally when I think of licorice candy, I'm thinking of something sort of more elongated, more viney-like. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to swap around some of these, and we're going to make this more of a dexterous creature. It's very ropey, it's very sort of noodly, and so it moves with a fair amount of dexterity. Licorice root as well. We want to go to the sort of elemental base of our golem. So let's change some of these statistics. We could just straight out swap strength and dexterity. So we have a 9 strength and a 19 dex. I don't know if I want to do that necessarily, though, because that's going to weaken our golem considerably. And we want it to be, you want a golem to be fairly physically hardy. But then again, does it make sense that this golem, which is just made out of, sort of sugary candy, that is not terribly strong? Well, there's an argument to be made there as well. Oh, and as always, those of you who are with me live in the chat, please feel free to contribute your ideas and suggestions. Part of the reason we do this as a live stream, as an interactive format, is so that we can communicate and you can contribute ideas at the same time that I am working on this kind of stuff, and that we, build collaboratively. So, 12-sided guy, I'm loving the idea of a pair of mad mages who use red and black licorice golems in wizard checkers. That's a brilliant idea. It's not something I thought about, but if you just made a little tiny licorice golem, used something like, what is it, Tiny Servant? Is that the spell where you basically just animate a little inanimate object? You can make little Twizzler pieces. That's a fantastic idea. So our black licorice golem. You know what? Actually, I think I'm going to leave it as it is, because I like the idea of it being more noodly, more slithery than strong. So I think we're going to leave it as this for the moment, and just make it extremely dexterous. Doing that, though, we need to go back up to its armor class, because base armor class is always 10 plus dex. So we increase the armor class from a 9 to a 14 because of that. Now, let's start looking at our condition immunities and vulnerabilities and all of that. So, condition immunities as a golem cannot be charmed, exhausted, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, or poisoned. Let's see. Do we want to change any of these? I'm thinking petrified. We might want to take that away, because if you've ever found a piece of really, really old candy and it's just basically hard as a rock, this is a candy monster. So, if we look at, if we look at conditions, and I've just got my 5th edition player's handbook out here. If we look at conditions, what do we have here? Blinded. Actually, we should probably add that this is immune to being blinded because it doesn't have eyes. So it can't be blinded, and that also means that down here in senses, we're going to have to give it blind sight. To, let's just say 30 feet. So it doesn't have eyes, but it still can detect the presence of creatures and objects within 30 feet of it. Logan. Black licorice venom. Oh my. So let's see here. Charmed, exhausted, deafened. Well, it doesn't have ears, so it can't be deafened. Let's see. Frightened is already on there. Grappled. Yeah, it wouldn't be immune to that. It wouldn't be immune to being incapacitated. Then we get to paralyzed and petrified. I think because we've added blinded and deafened, I'm going to take petrified out. Just for thematic reasons, I think it makes sense not to have petrified in there. So, yeah, I'm pretty much happy with that. So we've added a couple condition immunities and we've taken one away. Damage immunities. Lightning, poison, and then bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, non-magical attacks that aren't adamantine. Well, let's see here. Lightning is obviously something you'd get in the flesh golem because we're going on that sort of Frankenstein kind of basis. Lightning does not kill the Frankenstein, or the Frankenstein's monster, if you want to be pedantic. It only empowers it. Not necessarily the case when it comes to our black licorice golem, so let's take that off. It's still going to be immune to poison because it does not have any sort of biological circulatory system. Poison isn't going to be a thing. 12-sided guy. That's a good point. How does a golem hear commands if it does not hear? Magic. A wizard did it. I don't pull that card often, but I do when it's like, yeah, you make sense, but also in the narrative it makes sense, so a wizard did it. Okay. So far we've adjusted the ability scores a little bit, which has raised the armor class. We've removed one of its condition immunities. We've removed one of its damage immunities. We've also granted it 2 new condition immunities and changed out dark vision for blind sight. All in all, I think we are keeping the balance pretty well in terms of not making it overpowered for a CR5 creature, but not making it underpowered either. I think we're about even thus far, which is good. So let's move on down to special abilities here. Special abilities and actions. And I'm going to try and keep this... Yeah, you should be able to see that easily on the stream. So, the Flesh Golem has a Berserk ability, so if it's on low health, it goes Berserk. I don't think I want that for our Black Licorice Golem, so let's just delete that right away. Has an aversion to fire. Fire burn, as we all know. Aversion to fire given the sugar content, that seems fitting. Yeah. That does still seem fitting, so we'll keep that. Is there any way we could enhance it? What happens to sugary stuff when we start burning it? It caramelizes? It gets crispy, maybe? Well, we'll maybe come back to that. Immutable form, that's something that every golem has. It's immune to polymorph effects. Blue Flame. Lightning Absorption. We're going to get rid of that one because, again, different kind of golem. Should we have something in its place? Let's see. I'm just going through the Rolodex in my head of different types of magical damage. Is there anything we could swap out lightning for that would make sense for our Licorice Golem? Cold... Psychic, Radiant, Force, Poison, Acid. Doesn't really make any sense that those would, those would, be helpful to our Black Licorice Golem. So maybe we'll just take that out entirely. Magic Resistance, the Golem has advantage on saving throws against spells and abilities. And magic weapons, the golem's weapon attacks are magical. Both of those are fine, we're going to leave those as is. So, what have we done here in this section is we have taken out 2 of the golem's special abilities. That is something we're going to have to address. We're going to have to either buff up some other current abilities, or add new abilities to replace the ones we've taken out. Because again, we want to keep it kind of balanced at that challenge rating 5 that it came at. Originally, we don't want to start removing things and then its power level drops drastically. So, I'm wondering, because I'm just imagining this sort of, I don't know, almost bundle of, I've called it shoestring licorice, but like licorice rope, basically, just long, thin strands. I'm imagining like a tangled up bundle of those, and the strands are all wiggling around like a giant, like a flying spaghetti monster, almost, ramen. But, something of that kind of construction. So what qualities would that have? I imagine maybe it has advantage on grapple checks to escape grapples, because it is just sort of noodly and very, very, snake-like and writhing, and it slips free of grasps. Oh, yeah. Logan and you and I are on the same wavelength there. So maybe it has advantage on grapple checks. Can move through small spaces. Okay. Let's start adding some things here. Ropey. So, our golem is ropey. It has advantage on dexterity, acrobatics checks made to escape a grapple. Oh, Frosty! Welcome! Welcome to the studio! Frosty says, I can reason something like the rogue's evasion because of it being so dexterous. Ah, 12-sided guy with a good idea. It can compress itself down to a medium size to fit through smaller spaces. I like that. Let's see, how are we going to word that into an ability? Sorry, I got distracted by the music. Would we say it's gelatinous form? It's not exactly gelatinous. It's a bit firmer than that. Loose form? How about this? Wiggly. Our golem is both ropey and wiggly. So our golem can fit through spaces as small as... Should we just say 5 feet? So, the size of a medium-sized creature. I think, for some reason I'm thinking there are rules in 5th edition for squeezing through tight spaces. They're not rules I've ever had to reference, so I don't know off the top of my head, but for some reason I think they do. And it, like, uses extra movement. Oh dear. Excuse me while I consult the index. Squeezing under movement. Yep, I thought it would be in here. Page 192 of Ye Old DMG, or not DMG, PHB. Squeezing into a smaller space. You can squeeze through a space large enough for a creature one size smaller than it. Must spend 1 extra foot for every foot it moves there. Okay, so it's basically, it becomes difficult terrain. So we'll need to specify in here, it can move through spaces as small as 5 feet in diameter, without suffering a penalty. Okay. So it can move through spaces as small as 5 feet in diameter without suffering a penalty. So the rules normally about squeezing through small spaces do not apply to our golem when it's moving through a medium space. Thank you, 12 Guy, for finding that for me. Do appreciate the assistance. So now we come down to the actions section. We have our multi-attack, that our golem makes 2 slam attacks, and we have the slam attack. kind of basic. I think we can do better than that. I think we can go better. We are going to keep just the basic slam attack, but I think we're going to change that to a whip attack, because this has long, noodly whip-like appendages. Sorry, I'll stop doing that. So it has noodly whip-like appendages. We're not going to change the 2 hits of it. Reach is going to increase to... Let's increase the reach to 10 feet. And on a hit, it does... Let's see, whips do slashing damage. 2d4 plus 4 slashing damage. That would be an average of 13. So it whips out one of its licorice appendages and has a reach of 10 feet, deals slashing damage, deals damage equivalent to that of a flesh golem. So that's fine. What else could we have it do, though? I'm thinking it's got these long, ropey appendages. Can it, like, lasso people, basically? And if so, is that just covered under a grapple check? Do we give it some kind of special ability for being able to do that? Oh. What am I doing? That ability is Licorice Whip, of course. What else could we do? See, now I want to give it an ability called Licorice Twist, and I'm trying to figure out what would a Licorice Twist ability be, other than just picking somebody up and twisting them. Not sure. But as a baseline, this is pretty good. You could easily drop this into your game, and it would be something like Winding Up. Winding Up. In what way, Frosty? Elaborate for us. But this is a baseline very good for a CR5 monster. We've taken out some abilities, we've given it different abilities to replace those. So on the whole, we are, I think, pretty well balanced with this. And this would be a fun little encounter for your players. Turns itself into a licorice worm. Now I'm thinking we need like giant gummy worms to accompany this in our confectionery of horrors. But I think as a baseline, this is probably pretty good. And we can come back and noodle with this a little bit later. But based on, now that we have this Licorice Golem creature, I've gone ahead and created a couple little fun things spinning off of this idea. What did I do, Logan? I've created a couple fun ideas spinning off of this that, if you're going to introduce this creature into your game, kind of naturally come with it. Frosty, perhaps it can twist itself to build up force and unleash when it releases. Interesting idea. It's definitely something to think about. But going off of that, we have created, because we now have a Licorice Golem, of course, we need a process of creating it. We need a new spell, Create Licorice Golem. This would be a 5th level transmutation spell, available to artificers, bards, and wizards. Why bards? Because I think that's funny. Casting time of 24 hours, range of touch. Components, verbal, somatic, and material. 1,000 gold points, 1,000 gold pieces worth of sugar, 500 gold pieces worth of licorice root, 500 gold pieces worth of flour or gelatin, 100 gold pieces worth of beeswax, 500 gallons of water, all of which is consumed by the spell. Duration instantaneous, and our directions, or recipe you might say, for this particular spell: combine all material components except the beeswax in an exceptionally large cauldron, and stir continuously over steady heat for half the casting time. When the components are combined in a sticky tar-like mixture, pour into a mold of the desired size and shape and allow to cool for the remaining time. Once cool, remove from the mold. As you complete the incantation, rub the beeswax over the golem's body for a shiny, appetizing finish. Upon completion, the raw materials used animate with semi-sentience. The Licorice Golem is a CR5 creature that acts on its own initiative in combat. Your DM will have the creature's statistics. They're just one page up. The Licorice Golem obeys the spoken commands of its creator to the best of its ability. If issued no current command, or its most recent command has been completed, it will take no action. Ah, interesting. Interesting idea, 12-sided guy, building off of what Frosty had said. So we were imagining if our Licorice Golem sort of twists itself up and brings all of its limbs in, and then does this spiral out of limbs in all directions doing an AoE. I like that. Let's go back here. So we'll change his multi-attack so it can do 2 Licorice Whips, or it uses Licorice Twist. So this will be see. Okay, so Licorice Twist. The golem twists itself, then unleashes a spiraling swirl of sugary pain. All creatures within 10 feet of the golem must succeed on a DC 15 dexterity save, or take 13 slashing damage. Now, in case you're wondering, where did I come up with DC 15? Well, simple. The DC for your ability is always 8 plus proficiency bonus plus ability modifier. We have the proficiency bonus plus ability modifier in our weapon attack. It's there plus 7. We add that to 8, we get 15. That is the DC for our dexterity save on this ability. So, oh, and I realize you can't see that because it's cut off on the bottom of the window. So there we go. Our Licorice Twist. So we've given our golem a little AoE ability that it can use instead of doing its multi-attack. That's great. I love that. You guys are awesome. I love having you guys in the studio with me. So we have our Create Licorice Golem spell, and I decided, you know what? Let's go ahead and go one further. Let's create a magic item. So we have a bag of black licorice beans. It's a wondrous item. It's very rare. This ordinary-seeming bag contains 1d10 plus 1 magical beans. To look at, these beans appear to be simple confectionery treats with a hard, black shell. If planted in soil and water, the bean will sprout a CR5 Licorice Golem after 8 hours. The golem acts on its own initiative in combat. Your DM will have the creature's stats. The Licorice Golem obeys spoken commands of the person who planted the bean to the best of its ability. If issued no command, or its most recent command has been completed, it will take no action. And this next part is kind of gross, I apologize, but I think it's funny. If a living creature eats a bean, it must succeed on a DC 12 Constitution saving throw or be poisoned for 8 hours. If the poison condition is allowed to reach its full duration, the creature instantly dies as a Licorice Golem bursts out of their body. A golem created in this way is hostile to all creatures it can perceive and will act with mindless aggression. I think that's funny. Your mileage may vary. Yes, Frosty, that is how you calculate save DCs for abilities. It's the same way that it works for player character abilities. It's always 8 plus proficiency plus relevant ability stat. Now, there's no reason that you have to feel compelled to stick with that formula by any means. You can fudge it one way or the other, make it harder, make it easier for your players. You know, that's completely acceptable, depending on what level you want the challenge to be. But that's sort of the official formula for calculating save DCs. Yes, it is a chest-burster golem, Jay. Frosty, you want to use this and disguise it as simple candy? Go right ahead, my friend. Everything that we make on the studio, you are free to use for your own home campaign. Bring into your game, thrill, delight, or terrify your players. So yes, the bag of black licorice beans. Fun for some, not so much for everybody. So, we have about half our time in the studio left. And I did say that if we have time, I was going to go one further on Chad's challenge. So, what I would like to do with those of you in chat with me today, my wonderful friends, let's talk about cosmic candies. And what I mean by that is eldritch elder gods composed of confectionery material. I have a couple ideas here already that I've begun to sketch out in very vague terms that I will share with you. We have, the bottom of the document because I forgot to scroll back up. But our first, the Anise Star. This is an eldritch deity, a gargantuan god. It is lawful evil. And I have not filled in any of its stats because, well, I didn't have time. And also, I couldn't decide what challenge rating to make it, and that's going to determine pretty much everything else about it. So, hello, Tessa. Hopefully you've made it home, not driving anymore. Good. Glad you made it home safe and sound. Welcome back to the studio, as always. So we have the Anise Star. And then opposing it, we have Shubatoth, the Citric Usurper. Another gargantuan god, this one chaotic good. And also, I haven't filled in any of the statistics or abilities yet because there's, a lot to determine there. We just have to decide what kind of challenge rating we want to set this at and go from there. And then the last thing, which I actually ended up showing you first, accidentally, is the Elder Confection Warlock Patron. Because if you're going to create Elder Gods, you kind of need to figure there's going to be Warlocks who want to try and worship them. That's just the Warlock thing. So, the Elder Confection Warlock Patron. You've received knowledge from the Outer Realm, from an entity beyond mortal understanding whose words range from bitter to sweet. You have chosen to bind yourself to this entity, risking your own sanity in an effort to draw more power from its eternally scrumptious essence. And we could, if we wanted to, go through here and start building out what an Elder Confection Warlock Patron would be like with a spell list, leveled features, and so forth. But I am seeing here in chat Frosty's suggestion, gods whose domains are of particular candy flavors. Yes, you can have an entire confectionery pantheon, ranging from sweet to sour to bitter, and all flavors in between. Uh, Tessa says, Chocthulu. Yes. Chocthulu indeed. Man. They can count Chocula cereal, but they've never made a Chocthulu. I feel that's an oversight. So, let's just for fun dive into the Anise Star here for a minute. What sort of challenge rating do we think this Eldritch deity should have? Jay says you did a commission for a coffee cleric once. That's brilliant. A cleric that serves a god of coffee. I kind of like the idea of this working into... Maybe you have a campaign where all the adventurers are patisserie chefs. So you've got, like, clerics of certain flavors and warlocks of certain flavors, and... yeah. It can be all very cute and brightly colored in Candyland kind of thing. That's neat. So what challenge rating do we want to go with? Well, we could jump straight to Tarrasque and go 30. I feel that's pretty appropriate for a god. Doesn't Lolth have a stat block? Lolth has a stat block. Tiamat has a stat block. Demon Princes, who I guess aren't quite gods, but they're kind of on that level, have stat blocks. So yeah, they do exist. CR30. You know what? Let's do it. Let's go ahead and make this a CR30 creature. So. Let's see. Pull some inspiration. Whoop. My manual dim monsters. And let's go for the OG himself. Where is the Tarrasque? Excuse me, themselves. Tarrasque is a CR of 30, which means it is worth 155,000 experience points. Whoops, one too many fives there. Tarrasque has 30 strength, 11 dex. I apologize if you can hear my cat whining. 3 intelligence, 11 wisdom, and 11 charisma. Now, we're talking about an elder god here, so we're going to have to change some of these up. So, an elder god, I don't think... Strength isn't necessarily going to be one of their big things. They're definitely going to need more intelligence. Intelligence, wisdom, charisma... Probably dex. Okay. So I've redistributed the stats a little bit. So very low strength, lower constitution, but very high dex. And we've bumped up those mental scores as well. Hello, Zach. Thank you for the resub. I'm assuming that just happened. I think it just popped in. If it didn't, thank you for the resub anyway. Let's see. 12-sided guy. Many years ago now made a candy store for a play-by-post RPG where the elven woman running it was effectively a candy mage. Maybe she was a candy warlock. Maybe so. Maybe so. It all depends. Has she bound her soul to some kind of candy-related eldritch entity? Was he a servant of the Candy King? That is the question. So we've got some stats here. Let me just write out what these bonuses would be. -2. 30 is a +10. Con, it's going to be a +5. +3. Whoops. +2. And +2. Alright. So, armor class. Tarask has a natural armor class of 25. From what we know baseline, because it's 10 plus dex, it's a baseline armor class of 20. And I feel like that's decent. I don't know that we need to go any higher with that. Hit points. Tarask has 33 d20 plus con modifier hit points. So if we go on that, 33 d20 plus... let's see, this would be 165. It's going to give us, let's see, -165, about 510 HP to start with. Oh, thank you, Logan. So about 500 hit points to start with. And there's always a discussion to be had about, should you stat gods? Should you give them hit points, etc., etc.? Should you allow the possibility of player characters actually being able to kill gods? And that all depends on your setting. You know? In some settings, gods are very real, sort of tangible things once you get to a certain level of power. If you're dealing with 20th level characters, post 20th level characters even, then dealing with gods is, in some universes, very real, because you have characters that are on the sort of the cusp of deification themselves. In others, it doesn't really make sense if you have more of an amorphous, ethereal kind of conception of what a god is in your particular setting. Then the idea that you can actually kill a god is ridiculous. It's more of a kind of, you kill everyone who follows the god, you smash all of their temples, you destroy all records of their existence, and that's what destroys them, basically. If no one remembers them, they no longer exist. So it all depends on how it's going to work out in your setting. If it is sort of more the latter, you can always take these kind of things as, well, what if this god manifested as an avatar in the world? And then these are the stat blocks for the avatar of it. You can kill it, it might weaken the god significantly, it won't destroy them altogether. So, that's just an idea. So, our god has 510 hit points, which is ridiculous, by the way. I know we laugh all the time about, you know, barbarians with 200 hit points and whatnot, but when you consider an average commoner in the books has 4 hit points, that's the baseline we're looking at here. This is a creature that has well over 100 times as many hit points as a commoner. So, that's the kind of ridiculous level that we're working with. And let me adjust this slightly to fit in the window a bit better there. So, speed. Let's see. It's a gargantuan creature. Let's see. Gargantuan is 40 foot by 40 foot, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to say 60 feet. Can move 60 feet and around. Condition immunities. I've already gone and filled in here with things that I think make sense. So blinded, charmed, deafened, exhaustion, frightened, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, prone, and unconscious. Does not make sense to me that a god would be subject to any of those. And then damage immunities, bludgeoning, piercing, slashing from non-magical attacks. That makes sense. Are there any other damage immunities we could give them? And as a god, we can make them perhaps resistant to radiant damage. It's not really a good aligned god, though, so that doesn't make sense. And it's not really a god you would associate with death, even though it is evil, so I don't think giving it necrotic immunity makes sense. Psychic immunity, maybe? Being an elder god? It deals psychic damage, it does not take psychic damage. Oh, Gargantuan is 20 foot by... well, right, 4 squares, not 40 feet. Thank you, that 12-sided guy. Yes, Frosty, only 100 times. So, 20 foot by 20 foot. Okay, well, yeah, I'm going to drop that to 40 then. If it's 20 foot by 20 foot. Psychic damage. Yeah, I think that's appropriate. So it is immune to psychic damage. Mind flayers beware. You can't do shit to this thing. So, senses, it's going to have blind sight. Oopsie-doo. Blind sight to... say 300 feet. With a passive perception of 12. Oh, one thing I forgot here, because it is a legendary creature, it's going to have some saving throw bonuses. So, let's see here. If we go off the Tarrasque gets proficiency with Int, Wisdom, and Charisma saving throws. Excuse me. Yeah, we'll stick with those because those just make sense for the moment. So, its Int saving throw is going to have a bonus of +9, so +12. Wisdom +11. And Charisma +11. So it's got some meaty mental saving throws. Languages. Fatagan. Okay. And now we get down into abilities. We're running low on time here, but we'll keep working on this until we get to the end of the hour. So, of course, legendary creature gets a legendary resistances. And that's just 3 per day. Legendary resistances. As a DM, I love you. As a player, I hate you. Flantog. Oh, that's amazing. Thank you, Tessa. Speaks Flantagen. Speaks the language of the Eldritch Custard. So, magic resistance. I'm just pulling these off of the Tarrasque's description for the moment because they make sense. Magic resistance. Let's see. Let's see, Reflective Carapace. No, we're not going to give it that. That's pretty unique to the Tarrasque. We're also not going to make it a siege monster. So we'll have to come up with a couple other unique traits of the Anise star that we can give it to replace those. So, what are some fun things that we can do here? Well, one thing I think I'm going to do is we'll jump down to actions here for a second. And there's an ability that certain types of creatures, usually dragons, have. The Tarrasque has. It's called Frightful Presence. I think we're going to take a flavor of that, adapt it a little bit, and we're going to give our Eldritch God here an ability called Maddening Presence. Because that's just how Eldritch Gods do. And we'll say each creature of the... Let's see, what would our saving throw for this be? We have a +9, yeah, DC 21. Wisdom save. Yes, because Outer Realm and Insanity and whatnot. An Eldritch God of Candy, it would be immune to poison. Did I not have that in there? I didn't. Thank you for pointing that out. It's going to be immune to poison. Let's see. Maddening Presence. Each creature within 120 feet must make a DC 21 Wisdom saving throw. Or take... What's a ridiculous amount of psychic damage? Let's go big here and say... Ooh. Okay. (16d6) psychic damage, which if you're wondering where I pulled that from, it's from the Tarrasque's Swallow ability. If it swallows something, it takes 16d6 acid damage at the start of every turn. So, yes, Logan, it takes all of the psychic damage. Yeah, well, 12-sided guy, it's immune from being poisoned, that doesn't make it immune to poison damage. Those are two different things. So, but because it was immune to being poisoned, it was important we add the poison immunity in there as well. Poison damage immunity. Okay. That fails its saving throw is also frightened. Oh, that's fun. We'll add that in there as well. See, now I've added that, and I'm not sure if I like it. So, what we've added here is a creature that fails its saving throw is also frightened. It can repeat the saving throw at the end of its turns, with disadvantage if the star anise is in line of sight, ending the condition on a success. Here's my problem with it, though, and this is a thing that I try to be very mindful of when it comes to writing homebrew, is the requirements for being able to see something is kind of in and of itself ableist. And that's something I try to be mindful of and avoid. So can we change that? I don't want to change it to just be aware of the star anise, because you can be aware of the star anise and you're just constantly at disadvantage then, even if you are in no way sensing its presence. You can be aware of it, by proxy. So I wish there was a better way to phrase that. Maybe within a radius. Oh, I like that. Okay, we're going to change that. We're going to change this to a radius. So if you are within 120 feet, you make your saving throw a disadvantage. The only way to avoid that is to run away, bravely run away, like Sir Robin. So it's actually past 7 at this point, so we are over time. I'm going to very quickly wrap it up. Thank you, everybody who joined me in the studio today. This is a lot of fun. I have enjoyed our creations thus far. As a reminder, you can check out these creations and all of our previous creations on our World Anvil page titled Homebrew Studiopolis. I've actually not gotten our magic materials from last week up yet. I will work on that. I will get those and what we've worked on today up there. There will be a link in chat to our Homebrew Studio page. Check it out. We are fantastically lucky to have World Anvil as a sponsor of the Nerdsmith Network and of the stream. You can check them out at worldanvil.com. I always get those two confused in my head. Go to worldanvil.com. You can sign up. You can get a free account to check out the majority of their features. And you can get a paid membership as well to unlock a few extras. It's very much worth it, in my opinion, if you are planning a campaign or building a setting for your fantasy novel or other creative work. I also want to thank our sponsor, Die Hard Dice. They make incredible polymer and metal dice sets. They have just announced a new item, the Dice Scroll. There's an official name for it, but it's basically a rolled up surface that you can roll your dice on, and it has a pouch that has your dice in as well. It's fantastic. That's going to be coming out next week. That's going to be available for order. So you can save 15% on your first or next order at Die Hard Dice by using the coupon code HOMEBREW. It's one word, HOMEBREW. So check them out and see if there's anything there that strikes your fancy. If you want to find more of me, you can follow me on Twitter at Matthew A. Siebert. You can also check out the Land Above podcast, which is a D&D storytelling podcast set in a homebrewed subterranean setting. I am the DM for that, and I have a fantastic, diverse cast of LGBT plus players. You can find that by going to nerdsmith.org and looking under the content tab, or just subscribing to the Land Above podcast on iTunes or your pod player of choice. We'll be back next week at the same time, 5 p.m. U.S. Pacific, only here on twitch.tv/wearenerdsmith. Until then, let us know what you think of what we worked on today. And coming up next, we have Countless Heroes, our West Marches style D&D stream, which is DM'd by Logan. It features a revolving cast of 16 players. That's at 7 p.m. tonight, so just about an hour from now. Go grab yourself some dinner and come on back, because tonight the heroes are continuing their march towards the end of the campaign. It's going to be wrapping up in just a couple weeks' time. So come see how the epic saga ends. But that's it for our time in the studio this week. Thank you all for joining me. Take care, my friends.